Hi folks, this is video number 154 and the title is Leap Year 1980 House Fire. I don't know how I waited so long to get this one. Hadn't thought about it for a long time. I was on second shift for leap year. Being our house at Westgate Development was only 3 miles from the plant, I arrived home about midnight. The house was originally heated with electricity. It was expensive. I put in an Ashley wood burner. There were no real places for the boys where the boys could make any money, as I did when I started in the hayfields. I wanted them to learn how to organize work and also work as a team. Burning wood was cheaper than electricity, and that meant my goals for the boys. The boys were 18 months apart. Brian was about 9.5, and Dennis would be 8 in a few weeks. I had already taught them how to do oil and filter changes on the vehicles. They could do it unassisted. After the first time, I just handed them the tools and told them to think about it and plan it out. They could and did a fine job. I had a small 16-inch chainsaw. I then arranged for about 5 tons of scrap wood to be delivered from a fellow making his own lumber outside of Mahoopany. Wood was delivered on a regular schedule. The big smiles changed to frowns on Friday afternoon when I got off the school bus and there was a pile of wood in the yard. I worked with them until I knew they were comfortable with the safety requirements for cutting wood and the need to work as a team. The house was a nice 28 by 50 ranch. The boys had their own rooms on the front left of the house, and ours was across the hall in the back half of the house. Next to Brian's room was the living room. On the back half was a laundry room, a corridor kitchen, and a dining room. I made an entry into the laundry room from our bedroom. The laundry already had an outside exit door onto a small concrete porch. The original living area was 28 by 40. The remaining 10 feet of length was originally a one-car garage. The previous owner created a family room in the garage, but there was still 10 feet of the garage left for storage. It also still had an overhead door. I took off the garage door and made the wall the same as the rest of the house. Next, I installed a walk-in door in the end of the house. When I installed the wood burner, the chimney was installed in the corner of this 10 by 10 space. The wood burner was installed in the living room, and the thimble went through the wall and into the chimney about 6 feet above the old garage floor. A steel cleanout door was installed in the bottom of the chimney. The boys would stack 5 cords of wood in this area. Access to the cleanout was blocked until the first row was used. Arriving home after second shift, I would crank up the wood burner so the chimney would stay clean. I had used a chimney brush the week before, making sure the buildup was gone. Since the cleanout door was blocked, I had to leave the build-up pile at the bottom of the chimney until that row of wood was gone. That was a major mistake. About 2 o'clock in the morning, Louise shook me awake and told me the house was on fire. I jumped up and went to the playroom door on the side of the dining room. I stood to the side and opened the door. The entire end wall at the wood pile was all flames. I told Louise to get the boys up and take them to Karen and Louie's next door. I grabbed the phone and called 911. When I had a new hot water heater installed in the laundry room, I had the installer put a faucet in the cold water inlet above the heater. I hooked a 50-foot garden hose to it and hung the hose on the wall. Remembering this, I ran to the laundry room and grabbed the hose. That is, after I quickly put on some pair of pants. I ran out of the bedroom, down the hall, across the living room and through the archway, and just as I reached for the playroom door, the hose pulled me back. It was 4 feet from the door. What a time to run out of hose. Then I remembered the laundry room outside exit. It was right next to the kitchen exit, onto the porch. I ran back down the hall, through the bedroom, and back into the laundry room. I went out on the porch, opened the kitchen door, and dragged the hose into the kitchen, across the dining room. Then I had plenty of slack to open the door and lay on the floor with the hose and fight the fire. The end wall was gone, and so was half the ceiling. I could see the chimney easily. I used it to bounce water up into the attic and also under the end of the playroom floor. Lou got my keys and moved my truck away from the house. And while I was knocking down the fire, he came into the room behind me and went to the gun rack on the other end and removed my guns. Outside was all ice, but both the Mahopané and Mahopané fire companies were there in about 8 minutes. I was sure glad to see them. I was able to find my big Refrigerator Game Commission coat, and I went outside and let the firemen do their thing. Smoke was coming down from the overhang, bouncing off the ground and going back up and enveloping the whole house. After things settled down and everyone was gone, I needed to sit for a few minutes and gather my thoughts. It was then I pictured myself doing something really dumb. Remember, I was awakened from a sound sleep to a burning house. It seemed that after seeing the flames, I saw myself going to the fridge and I grabbed my tea pitcher. Then it occurred to me that that was dumb and threw the pitcher in the trash can. I thought I was imagining that replay, but I looked in the trash can and sure enough, there was my empty tea pitcher in the can. A crazy, not awake yet reaction. The firemen did a great job of saving the house. The chief told me that I hit the fire just before it would have ignited the internally made gases. That would have made a big fireball and the house would have been lost. How the fire started was pretty easy to figure out once it got light and things had cooled. When I had turned up the wood burner to keep the chimney clean, I sure accomplished my goal. A spark had to have fallen into the pile of creosote at the bottom of the chimney. The clean-out door was steel, not cast iron. When the pile caught fire, the steel door got hot, buckled, and popped open. The flames caught the row of wood on fire. It was stacked along and against the playroom wall. The fire took out the wood pile and went up the wall, under the floor, and up into the attic from there. The firemen were able to fog and mist the attic and under the floor and get everything out in pretty quick order. I called into work and told them I wouldn't be in today. My extension ladder was hung on the back of the garage. I brought it in and went up into the attic area to check the roof. There was no burn through, but almost. I took my finger and pushed up against the charred plywood. I could feel the shingles lift as I pushed upward. Next, I went to the Mahopané lumber yard and bought some 16-foot 2x4s, made some T-shaped supports to wedge against the roof to hold it up for the rest of the winter. I spray painted all the charred framing and roof sheeting with white paint to seal it and keep the burn smell knocked down. I had to scab new lumber to burn joists and trusses. The entire outer roofing had to be replaced and reshingled. We also took down the chimney and built a new one. The new chimney was located against the wall I installed that replaced the garage door. It was incorporated in a cinder block wall backstop that was about 6 feet high. I covered the entire thing with Surewall and painted it a deep red. The clean-out door this time was cast iron. I built a platform off the back of the garage to stack the firewood. My insurance man said he had never seen such a fireproof setup. My insurance was approved with no problem. You could also just step down from the playroom and living room to the wood burner area. No walls at all. Dealing with the bank and insurance company was tedious. The insurance adjuster went through everything piece by piece. We laid most everything out in the driveway. The bank had to sign the check. They wanted me to apply the money to the mortgage, then take out a second mortgage for the check amount at a 3.5% higher interest rate. I balked at that. I told them I really didn't need that end room. I'd just take the chainsaw and cut off that end room, load it on my truck, and dump it in their parking lot. They signed a check. I bought the building materials. I learned a few things. If there was another time I had a house fire, I'd seriously think about waiting 20 minutes to call. It's a lot easier to build a new house than repair a 1/3 burned one. Any secondary heat source would be propane in a house from that time on. I now have a small lunchbox size tent stove for my shed. I have all the stuff. I just need to cut a hole through the gable end vent and make a standoff support for the outside vertical pipe. It will be very safe with all kinds of heat deflectors when and if I ever get it installed. And that concludes my story about leap year 1980 and the night my house burned. As always, folks, I wish everyone all the best.